This episode of Ladder Legacy is proudly sponsored by the Bedford Group Insurance, helping families and businesses protect what matters most. Whether it's coverage for your home, your family, your team, or your future, Bedford's got your back with the best reliable insurance solutions in Florida. Visit our website to learn more, bedfordinsurance.com. And now on to your episode.
Hey everybody, this is Rudy Romero with From Ladder to Legacy. I am here today with the man, the myth, the legend of Palm Beach, Erick Solms, the owner of Simplify. It is an IT company that is making sure you are protected, whether there is phishing or other types of online attacks. Erick is keeping business owners safe and businesses safe from this ridiculous world of phishing. And I feel like I just keep saying phishing because I feel like that is the worst thing that I've been seeing lately. And Erick, how are you helping people keep their computer and their infrastructure safe? Because I know you're doing it at a large scale and it's amazing because I don't know how you're doing it.
Well, Rudy, first of all, thanks so much for the invite. I truly appreciate it. Yeah, so basically we do IT cybersecurity for businesses. The company's called, as you mentioned, Simplify. Stands for Simple IT for You. So we try to simplify the IT and cybersecurity hurdles that businesses have, right? You mentioned a few things, phishing, PCs. Obviously, cybersecurity nowadays it's based on layers, right? In theory, you have to make sure that you protect the data, anything that touches data, right? And that can be a phone, a computer, it can be a website, it can be multiple things. So the whole idea is we treat cybersecurity as layers, and most businesses will fail because they don't have protection for one of the layers, right? So picture a superhero like Batman that has a belt of tools. A good IT company makes sure that they have a good set of tools underneath their belt and to make sure that they're able to work and operate correctly. At the end of the day, protecting a business, it's kind of like productivity versus security. The more secure you want to be, the less productive. The more productivity you want, the less secure. So it's finding a good balance so that way businesses can operate and do what they do best, which is run their business, and we can focus on the IT cybersecurity side.
Interesting. Now, how long have you been around for?
So funny enough, I was looking at my profiles and all that, my LinkedIn, and I graduated 20 years ago from college. And so I've been doing this for 20 years, but I started my own business 12 years ago. October 22nd, 2014. That's when Simplify started.
Wow. So you've been around for a while now. Obviously, like all businesses, they become this wonderful machine in your head that you have to get out into paper. Now, was Simplify something you started, or was it a franchise, or was it something that you had purchased? Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Right. So no, it's my own name. I created it. Actually, I have to renew my trademark, but yeah, it's everything I started on my own. When I started my company, I had the vision that in my head is like, I want to create a company name that eventually it can become a verb. So once it becomes a verb, then I'll know I did the right thing. Kind of like, hey, I'm going to Google that, right? Hey, I'm going to simplify it, right? So that was my vision 12 years ago. So I work a lot on the branding, and I want it to be just in one simple world. And I came up with a company name called Simplify.
Interesting. So again,
if you see it, there's like, I don't know, it's maybe reverse, but there's an IT in between in the name.
Yeah, no, I think so. So everybody knows Erick's branding is on point. So if you've ever met him before, if you haven't, he has some of the best branding I've ever seen ever, because his stuff is everywhere. I mean, he's got shirts, hats, pants, collateral, all that stuff. But I think it helps and explains how much he's really bought into a brand that he's built from scratch. So how did it start? So you were sitting there in a garage one day. Was it you and the Apple CEOs and everybody sitting together there, or was it just yourself? How did it all kind of jump off? Because I think that's really a lot of the viewers want to know, how did you start this journey? Because it is a journey, and tell us more about how it's been.
So the funny thing is, I'll tell you how I started on the industry. Right, I was raised by a single mother, and it was very difficult. I was very very young age, hard. Come from very humble beginnings, which I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. And I have my sister. And when I was 9 years old, I lived in Ecuador, and my sister decides to get married. And this wonderful man comes into my life. He became my mentor. And at that point, he became kind of like my role model. And he was in IT. At that point, he was the director at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach. So I would come every summer. And that's really how I got into IT. I just wanted to follow his footsteps. Funny enough, we work together now. So it's amazing to have plenty of part of my team, and we do solid things together. He handles all the operations. I handle everything else. At the same time, when I graduated college, basically I said, I was working, found a job. I was an international student, and this gentleman called Frank Sweet helped me. He said, it was my first interview, right? Hey, I said to the guy, hey, I don't know what you need. I don't know how much I know. I just told him I'll do anything needed. All I want is that you sponsor me, give me my green card so I can stay in this country. And he did. He's like, done. When can you start? So we did all the paperwork, started. And I was there for 7 years, actually. I went through almost 3 work visas renewals. And when that came, I got my green card. And when I got my green card, I went to him and I said, Frank, this is the day I've been waiting forever. Now I can finally become a partner of yours. And he said to me, you know what, Eric, I've been doing this just for you. This company, it's done. I don't want to know it. I don't want to know anything about it. I'm going to go work for, he had an opportunity to work as a VP at Comcast. He left and he basically said, start. And at that point, there was a couple other guys that did what I did. I was very young, very naive, never really focused on sales. So he let the clients decide who would go with each one of us. So I started with a couple of clients. At that point, I got a job offer at Deloitte. My goal was to go work for one of these big accounting firms. And when I asked one of the partner managers, hey, is this worth it? Or should I just go by myself and open up something? At that point, he said, based on your age, I would just open up something on your own. So that's what I did. And I never looked back. I opened it, decided to do it. And I started October 2014.
That's amazing. So again, talk about somebody who started from humble beginnings. I mean, you said you renewed your work visa multiple times. Obviously you had a vision, right? So, and I think this is, and obviously we want to get more into the company, but I think from an entrepreneur standpoint, and that's what a lot of people come on here is they hear these stories in between, right? People who have had opportunities and were ahead in life, some who weren't, some were in both opportunities, both situations. For you to have the grit, and I think this is something I spoke about with another podcast person the other day, somebody who does the same thing as me, and they said, hey, grit and determination. That's entrepreneurship, right? It's getting to a point where you understand you have to embrace the suck and that everything's going to work out perfectly. But it sounds like for you, again, through your connections, conversations, networking, opportunities you've created, you put yourself in a position to be successful, right? So it's intentional, right? It's not just luck. I think we all make our luck, and there is some luck that goes into, I think, the business world with deals, with sales. But a lot of what you've done is groundwork for success. And I think that's something that people forget. They see the branded shirts, they hear you're going to re-register your trademark, all this really cool stuff that are business-oriented goals, but they didn't know that you had to go redo your visa 7 times or 8 times, that you had to build a company from scratch. You didn't have somebody to help you just babysit you through the process, right? You had to build something because you had a dream, and you're living it now because of that. Now, for you, what was the scariest thing about living this dream? Was it the unknown? Was it the, hey, I know it's going to work out, but I know I have just some time to pay back those dividends? What was your biggest concerns kind of through the process?
So my biggest fear has always been debt. I hate that. So
Very
I
Dave
always said
Ramsey
to
of you.
myself that I was going to do this smart without getting loans, without like that I will work as hard as I can, right? So during this tenure, what I've learned is basically there's days that you crawl like a baby, and then there's days that you run 90 miles an hour. But I always say, as long as I move forward, I'm good. Going back to the same thing that you said, the challenges and all that. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a glacier that basically that says up the top it says the success, but
Yep.
underneath it basically feats of depth of this glacier that says the failure, the bad nights, all the stressors that come up from entrepreneurship, which are totally legit, right? Our cortisol levels are extremely difficult to read because at some point with the stress that we have, our bodies don't know if we're being attacked by a bear or if we're just having a random conversation, right? So I talk to my friends and I'm like, well, that's your problem. And I laugh, right? But again, and there's always going to be different levels, right? Because I have, a small, medium business problem. There's enterprise problems. There's all kinds of, but I think the time, the time, the experience helps you to deal with those stressors, right? And that's why I love my days are every single day is different. There's not a single day that's the same. So it's learning how to live a lifestyle of entrepreneurship, right? Yeah, because you put Instagram, you put whatever you want to put in, right? So they see typically the success. You don't put the bad stuff, right? But they'll see me at games and stuff like that, and they're like, "How do you do it?" Yeah, but then the next week I gotta work till 2 a.m. So and I love it. Like it's my lifestyle. Sometimes most of the days, my last thing I do before I go to bed is turn my computer off. So
That's hilarious. So tell me, in the IT world, as things have progressed since you've owned the business, since you started this wonderful, think tank incubator that's grown from a startup into a successful, thriving business, what are some of the things that have changed over the last couple of years that, is really pertinent for people to know or understand? Because I think,
correct. I think the biggest thing, most MSPs, if you're looking for an accounting firm, you go to an accountant. If you're looking for IT, you go to an MSP, managed services provider.
perfect.
And I'm an MSP, managed service provider, or managed security services provider, or both, right? I think the direction that we got to take is it's more of a managed intelligence provider. That the whole goal is going to be how do we protect your data, and how do we help you develop solutions around your data. And typically that can be with automatic processes, with AI. And I think that the direction is going to go into that, but it's going to be more than threat actors. It's also going to be how to protect the data from tools that are out there, and third party providers that are working with your data to get solutions. So it's going to be more a data oriented approach than a cybersecurity approach. Again, cybersecurity in today's world, it's you have to pay attention to this, right? Obviously, you're in the insurance business, and you know how important it is to have cyber liability insurance. Which, when I walk into prospects, they still don't even heard about this term, right?
Really?
Yep. Because a lot of the times we can only do what we can do, but no IT company can say, hey, I'm going to 100% cover you from everything, from all threats, right? Because at the end of the day, an employee can still release an email, an employee can still do something wrong, an employee can give the information if they become a part of a phishing attempt, or vishing, which is kind of like fishing through boys. So again, we can only do what we can, but we minimize the risk heavily. But you mitigate that risk by implementing cyber liability insurance.
Now, do you think it's just insurance agents aren't talking to them? Do they just think they're not going to be affected by this? Why do you think that's the case?
I think, obviously, I don't want to throw an insurance industry under the bus, but I think they just believe it's part of it, and it's just an add-on, right? They throw it as us, hey, let's have this. I think they should have a dedicated policy related to this, because there's so many factors that can go wrong, right? If your business, let's say you're in a compliant field, you're taking credit cards and there's a breach, you got to notify them. And we all get all these notifications, that, I don't know, Target got breached and they're going to pay LifeLock, which is a credit monitoring protection for a year for you. But if you have thousands of records, imagine how costly that is. An enterprise survives it, but a small, medium business without insurance, stuff, it can put you on your knees real quick. And you don't want that, right? But, if you got legal, you got extortion, you have PR, that the cities, so a few cities here, I don't want to mention a city name, but there's a few cities in town that got breached. And how do they build that public relation? How do they build that image back with their citizens that, hey, your data's safe, we're good, you can pay your bill, you can do this, you're okay. They're getting put into bad spots, but so this insurance helps them. Now, unfortunately, with today's world, and you probably know it better than anybody, it's kind of like insurance nowadays feels like it's use it and lose it kind of thing, right? But
yeah,
hopefully you don't have to use it. But if you use it, it allows you to come back and develop a plan to further protection, right?
Oh yeah, and not, like you said, and that's not basting the insurance industry, but I think part of it has been that people have gotten so used to making claims for the smallest stuff, right? Because society has gotten to a point where most people don't know how to work on their computers. Most people don't know how to fix their own cars, right? So we've gotten back to a place where society used to be, hey, we can tinker. Phones, I used to be able to pull out a battery off my BlackBerry, right? I could pull it out, put a new battery in, and boom, there we go. Now, iPhone changed the world, right? Because now they're fixed batteries, and I can't just go, I have to go to YouBreak iFix or insert company, right? So it's kind of changed the game for a lot of businesses. And if they're not willing to be agile and update themselves to understand it, insurance really should be for catastrophic events. Now, there are other things in there that you can add that make it less for just catastrophic events like a breach, which I'm sure you guys deal with as well. Because, in the insurance world, you have to have an MSP, you have to have a person like Erick when you get insurance. So when we go to sell insurance, we don't just sell the insurance. We say, hey, you need to have a conversation with Erick, with Simplify, because if you don't, any insurance I give you is going to be null and void because you have to follow procedures. That's the thing. Most people think, hey, you just get the insurance, you're protected. That's it. Something happens, whatever. They don't turn on MFA, two-factor authentication. They don't do any testing. And that's also part of some of the requirements, depending what carrier you're with, is the testing. And I'm sure you guys do the same thing. You do breach testing. We send out the phishing awareness things where they have to take the little tests online. Again, this isn't going to go against their job or something. It's just to make sure they understand the basics, right? Don't click on these links. Even if it says, Eric with a ERIC, and then there's 2 C's and 3K, 4Ks, 5Ks, whatever it is. And it says instead of Solms, it's Somi or something. You have to be careful, right? Now, how do you guys help businesses with that? Because I'm sure, like I've been talking about, there's a process for the insurance carriers. Do you guys go through that process, and how do you go through it with a business?
Right. So if a client has, the first thing when we sign up a client, we ask, do you have cyber liability insurance? And most of the time, sometimes they'll say yes, and I'll say, can I see the form that you created? And a lot of the times they don't even, they will tell me, hey, we have filled yes what we thought we could, or they'll say they never sent us a form, so then we have to go through the process again, asking, hey, insurance, what's going on? You never sent them a form. Do you have the right insurance and things like that, right? But yes, it's part of it, right? It's making sure. Which at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's cyber liability insurance is also good for me because it backs up what I say, right? Clients love to say, okay, you're telling me that I need to implement this set of protocols. Why? And all of a sudden they get the form from the insurance and they're like, okay, I get it. Right? So and at the end of the day, it's kind of like property insurance, right? If you have a fire on the office and you said you had 10 fire extinguishers, and when they go and see the fire and you have none, the insurance is going to be like, well, you lied because I based this premium that you based on that you had 10 fire extinguishers across all your office and you didn't.
Yep.
So why will I pay for this? Because your premium should have been this instead of this.
Well, you're like that fire inspector, right? You're making sure everything checks off, and you're making sure that the fire extinguishers are there, quote unquote, right? That there is no, there's a deadbolt, right? There's things to protect the business. And I think, again, you are, if you're getting insurance, and I tell this to every one of my clients, if you're getting cybersecurity insurance and you're not having somebody like Eric and Simplify, an MSP, you are quite literally paying for something that will mean nothing ultimately at the end of the day. Because unless you know what you're doing, which I think statistically, how many businesses are really being compliant? Like when you go into the business and you're like, these guys are saying, hey, yeah, I've had 5 or 6 employees. We're doing a great job. I'm going to take an educated guess and say, a great job to them isn't the same to you, right? Because you're a professional. Correct. So from a professional standpoint, you're probably seeing huge gaps comparatively.
Again, going back to that layer form, right? There might be protecting one or a couple layers, but not all the layers. And in today's world, it's really difficult. Now, the challenge on our industry is also that the average MSP now has to use 10 to 15 tools, right, under our belt. Back in the day, customers, especially customers that have been open for so many years or decades, in their minds, like, listen, all I need is an antivirus and a backup and something you can connect to the machine and then you're good. I'm like, unfortunately, that's not the case, right? It's the involvement of everything that goes through. It's difficult, right? It's making sure that you got to be very proactive on all those things. Because again, it's just so many exposure risks out there, especially with AI, because AI is amazing. I love AI. It innovates, it helps, but it's just like anything else. Technology, it's being used for good, but it's also being used for bad. And that's the concern.
Now, with AI, since you brought up the conversation of AI, what are you seeing in the workplace where there are some mistakes that businesses are making about allowing AI? Because I know I don't know necessarily the birth of what you deal with on a day-to-day on AI, but I'm sure you're seeing concerns come up because employees are making bad choices, right? Maybe using, I've heard don't use ChatGPT without a paid version because that information is no longer proprietary. It can be used in their data collection. Like, what are some good tips and tricks?
So I think the
owners,
the most things that I see is like they don't want to use AI, right? Because the owner typically doesn't know. So he's like, no, nobody uses AI. But when that happens, you're not innovating. You're not letting your employees innovate, which it becomes a workforce issue. And second, it becomes now you're going to be left behind from your competitors, right? So you have to innovate. It's have to have the mentality of innovation. So once you go through that and say, okay, I want to innovate, how do we use AI? It's making sure that you have a process on how to use it, how not to use it, and train them, right? People don't know. You got an employee that comes in, hey, look at this draft. I was able to do this with AI. It took me 30 seconds. Amazing. And now that process, the patents on ChatGPT, and you can't take it back, right? So now
Yep.
he did a good job, but he exposed you. So it's just making sure that you're implementing an AI usage policy, kind of like you have a computer usage policy, you have an internet policy, you have a mobile device policy, you have a bring your own device policy. You have to have a policy on your HR manual, and people have to sign off on it. And then you got to implement the right technologies and invest on it. What I tend to do is, yes, you can create generic, you can go to Claude, you can go to ChatGPT, you can do all these things. I tell the customers, just start with what you have, what process you can fix, and see, and go to your software providers and see what they offer. Like Microsoft uses Copilot. Seer, which is in cloud accounting, has now an agent that you can put, and you can chat and say, hey, write me a report. I want to know what my expenses decrease or increase based on the income increase or decrease that I had over the last year. And it tells you, hey, you're good. You increase your income by this. You decrease your expenses by that. Here's your forecast. Here's this. Now, on our side, for example, we're big with dispatching, right? So we went to our provider and created some AI that will facilitate our dispatching process, our scheduling process. So we're looking, how do we innovate based on the tools that we have? Because at the end of the day, yeah, we can go in and do a million things and explore a million things and try to find a way to be productive without exposing. But if there's tools out there that already are bulletproof, why not use them?
Yeah. And what are some, when you're doing your assessment, when you come in and you look at somebody's systems, right, their desktops or laptops, what is the first biggest thing that you see as a whole that you were like, wow, I can't believe that's happening, that's consistent on each business, that you think should be changed, but most people aren't seeing it?
Investing in the right technology. They just don't see it. They just don't see it. Like they still have, it's the lack of innovation mentality. That's the main issue that I have across businesses. And once they see it, that they're investing in technology and they're going to get a return on investment, that's not tangible. It's basically productivity in hours, better response, better resolutions, better employee mentality. Because if an employee has a nice system, a good technology, they love it. They don't want to be waiting. I had to wait 10 minutes to write an email. Nobody wants that. So it's the innovation. It has to be embedded into the business mentality of the business. Avoiding manual processes, automating processes, that kind of stuff. It's a mentality thing, because anybody can spend in technology, and from a economy perspective, the tech expenditure is outpacing our GDP, which is a good thing. So businesses are understanding that they have to spend money in technology to be competitive, to have the edge against competition.
Yeah, and you seeing that from a entrepreneur standpoint, so that entrepreneur, if they're a younger entrepreneur, is more open to technological advancements versus maybe an entrepreneur who is currently maybe in the disbelief that technology is or maybe they thought Y2K was a joke and emails weren't going to be a big thing and no one was going to be on the internet. Are you seeing that as a dichotomy?
I think that the newer startups are already used to this subscription-based model. Today, everything's subscription-based model.
Everything.
So it's just embedded into what we do. Established businesses, they still have, why do we have to pay for this? I used to be able to do it this way. So I think from a technology perspective, the new businesses are already embedded with that mentality of innovation, right? Which is something that small businesses really take advantage of, because you're able to decide real quick on technology. Once you go to, but that's why we can compete, and enterprise businesses see us as competitors now, because we have the advantage that, if I want to decide to go all AI, I can do it in a minute, against this big enterprise businesses that have to go through layers of approval. Once it gets approved, that technology is isolated. It's no longer the right technology, and then they have to do it again. And that's why some of the small businesses really become enterprise businesses overnight, if they have the right mentality and the right idea, because they don't have to go through all this processes that enterprise businesses are.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the world. And I'm sure you feel the same way about red tape in corporations, right? Is just that enterprise mentality of having to have 17 layers, and maybe they have an internal IT professional who has to, maybe is a contractor who has to, weigh in on something, and that just gunks up the process. And in that entire time, I mean, we've had, just in Palm Beach County alone, I can think of 3 large companies that had just gone through cybersecurity threats that put them down for a while. And I believe 1 or 2 of them, one of the food establishments, still has not been given back their information. I think you know who I'm talking about. So, I mean, it is quite literally happening, not just in America, not just in Florida, specifically here in Palm Beach County, as we continue to move in a direction of more businesses, people transiting from the Northeast and the West Coast to this area. I think we're going to see more and more of it. So what do you think the next steps are for the IT world? Is it going to be more consolidation? Is private equity going in and buying multiple? Because this is what I'm seeing across the board on the trades businesses, as well as insurance and professional services. PEs, venture capital groups, are going in and buying, and multiple entities, maybe making between 3 and 5 million in gross revenue, and kind of combining them to build this larger infrastructure. Are you seeing the same thing in the IT world, or is it kind of not like that at all?
Yes, there's it's big, it's huge. Like I get 2 or 3 letters of let's talk every week, 5 calls a week related to purchasing. Again, I'm not going anywhere. It's what I love. I have a passion for this. I still think I'm young, so I have another good 10, 15 years in this before I sell. And I really think if I keep innovating, then I shouldn't have any threats of, technology changes or becoming obsolete or anything like that. I think that was a conversation I had 20 years ago. And I'm like, am I going to the right direction, right field? I think I'm still in the right field. But I also see this as a vehicle this is my vehicle to create other sources. I have a part-time owner of a restaurant and things like that. So, but yeah, it's basically just keep innovating. As I said to you, we're transitioning to become a managed intelligent provider, still being an MSP, keep innovating. But yeah, the industry is changing. It's companies will become bigger because they keep buying and buying. I've thought of buying other businesses myself. I just got to make sure that I know what I'm doing, and until I'm not 100% comfortable knowing what I'm doing, I hate that. So I haven't made that step yet.
Yeah, but again, like you said, that's you're working towards that. At the end of the day, like anybody else, I think it's different when Erick goes and buys a company versus NVIDIA or Oracle or any other larger corporation that works in a similar space doing IT work of some sort. That feels a lot different, right? So the hope would be is people like yourself, which I'm excited to get down into a little bit more about the restaurant thing too, of course, is you are looking to build a great local business, right? You're not going to Wyoming to go sell to New York. You're not going to Maine. You're here, right? That doesn't mean that you won't take clients, of course, if things came up. I'm sure you'd be more than happy to take, 300-400 desks coming out of Northern Virginia if somebody was so interested. But at the end of the day, your money, your time, your business, your employees are focused here, right? And that helps the local economy. So with that said, and talking about, helping local economy, you're also a part of a restaurant. You got to give me a little bit more of that, because I thought you just had all the time in the world to go to these soccer games and everything. But apparently, no, on the side, you also run some small food establishments as well.
Yeah. So years ago, it was an idea of starting this on the yuca, which is like a yuca cheese bread with smoothies. And we did it at marketplaces and locals, the green markets locally. And then we opened up a kiosk at the Tanger outlets. At that point was the Palm Beach outlets. And then we decided to move inside into the food court. But now we changed the concept. It was really hard to just do the yuca cheese bread and smoothies. So we transitioned into a fully Ecuadorian restaurant. So it's basically, we have a full restaurant running at a food court establishment. So it's really good. The food's amazing. It's from my country, our cuisine, Ecuadorian, which is great. It's amazing. And we've been there for a few years already.
Now, how did you get into that? Because again, just like IT, I can only imagine there's a story behind it. And you're doing these again in parallel, which I love, because I also am a serial entrepreneur myself. So how did you get into it? And how are you finding the time to balance your life? Because I think that's something that the Gen Z, will call it, is so interested in today's world, where, 20, 30 years ago, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week was normal. Now everybody wants to travel to Bali, and they want to climb the Grand Canyon, and they want to parachute from the cliffs in Scotland. There's this mentality of traveling and having fun. How do you keep that work-life balance?
Through the years, I've been able to to do it, right? It didn't happen overnight that I had more time to, not have the people to delegate. It's learning how to delegate. You're gonna fail because you can't delegate right away. You got to find the right person at the right process. Sometimes you find the right person, but it's at the wrong process. So it's making sure that it's a trial and error until you get it right. And now it runs like a clock, but that clock can still be wrong. Can be wrong all times, but it's going to be right 2 times a day, right? But it's basically, as I said, my bread and butter. 100% what I do is simplify. But if I do open up any other ideas or procedures, I find partners that I can work with, because I need to be devoted 100% to simplify. So that's kind of like how I do it. It's basically, I'm part of it. I help with decisions. I help on if they need me on a day to day, I can make an exception and go work with them or go help. But it's basically becoming part of other elements that don't really take too much of my time. Or if they do, it's at a beginning stage, which it did. At some point when we open up, it was kind of funny because I was part-time cybersecurity, full-time cybersecurity, but it was fun. You learn how to interact. My business is business to business. That one's business to consumer. And it's great because I saw it as a training, customer service, talking to people, helping with the technology. It's just a passion for entrepreneurship, right?
And I think that's what you have to have. I mean, post COVID, to be an entrepreneur, I think it takes a lot of grit, and it takes, I think grit is the best word. The next thing is just being agile. And I think it's interesting that you're kind of doing both, running them parallel and still being able to keep that work-life balance. Because a lot of people struggle with that opportunity, right? They see working as a 24-hour business, which, again, not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, because I fall into that trap myself. But what I would love to know is, with all this stuff that you're working on, how do you take the time to find business? Because I think that's something that everybody struggles with from an entrepreneur standpoint. Are you a networker? Do you do ads? I think that's one thing a lot of the entrepreneurs today are struggling with. And, we don't need all the secrets per se, because I'm sure you have some good ones. But, in general, how are you finding success in the Palm Beaches? Is it networking? Is it management between both networking and ad additions? How are you making it work?
I believe it would be organic consistency, just be a farmer, right? Go with a farming mentality that you build in relationships. Always educating myself. Like I'm now part of. I did Sandler sales training for quite a while. Now I'm doing it again. Last year was terrible with sales, but it's good. It's admitting, right? It's putting the ego aside and say, sales are not working. What do I need to do? Obviously, training helps, right? So I went back to training. I joined a peer group that helps me, and we challenge each other and we learn from each other. It's a peer industry based on my specific industry. It's being consistent with chamber events, networking events. So once a month at the beginning of today, that's probably the perfect timing. I will go in and sign up for a month of all the events, all the chambers, all the business professional groups. So I just sign up, put them on my calendar. And there's times that I don't go, but it's okay. I lose the $20, $30. But if it's not on my calendar, it's committing, right? Put it on the calendar. Things will happen. Some things I'm tired. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to skip that event. Sometimes I have to do something. Like I have to do invoices or have a meeting or potential client. Things change. But if it's on my calendar, the odds are that 90% that I'm going to assist. So I just put it on my calendar. I basically book ahead the month. I do some campaigns on LinkedIn that I reach out to people, or if I'm networking, not selling. I don't sell you anything because I don't know if you need it. I don't know if I want to work with you. I don't know if you're going to like me. So it's basically build networking groups and connecting people. Like, sometimes I hear, they'll say, hey, something with insurance comes up. And I'm like, hey, Rudy's my guy. He takes care of everything. You want me to make a connection? I'll make a connection right away and do it right away. I'll connect you later. Because, it's a task oriented world in today's environment. Just think about it. I get 3,000 emails. I get 3,000 to do things. And when I get 3,000 emails, so it's just that it's having that helping mentality, that organic mentality. Now I am getting into some funnels, and I'm going to start building a strategy that's paid, but I really don't believe in the paid stuff. I usually buy organic, and it has worked well, but I know it's another avenue that now I'm willing to see if it works. But it's basically try to become an organic expert of community. If you have the community mentality, I think there's 4 things if you really think about it. One is, you have to have a good professional, you have to have a good community, and you have to be be individually very kind, humble. That helps. That helps quite substantial. I'll be honest, you go to this networking events, and over the last year, everybody asked me, "Hey, how are things going?" Sales are terrible, right? Most of the people that you go there, they're like, "How are things going?" "Oh, everything's going well. We're booming in this." I'm like, "Really? No, I'm struggling in this. What are you doing for marketing? What are you doing for this? How are clients are not paying." Everybody has challenges, right? So if you go into saying, "Hey, this is the problem that I'm trying to help me with this," people will help. You just got to ask for people to help.
Yeah, and I think it's consistency, right? So it comes back to that mentality of, okay, if you are being as deliberate as you're being, right? So you just said you're spending you're setting your whole month up, right, for success. You're keeping to a calendar. You're holding yourself accountable. You're not going out there and you're being authentic. You're not BSing people, right? Telling them, hey, this is what you want to hear, and here's why I'm saying it. You're showing up and you're making it happen. I think that is a mentality that a lot of, I speak to a lot of business owners, some that own, large companies, some that are smaller companies. And like you just said, that whole, oh, yeah, the world is fine. It's peachy. It's great. Nothing's wrong. That is got to be further from the truth. Between war, oil prices, politics, local politics, everything aside, there's 100 things that are causing business to fluctuate, including increase as well, right? But it's being honest with, your fellow business owner, giving feedback and saying, like, here's what is either working, not working, is missing or not missing. And I feel like that mentality, I feel like it's not as prevalent as it used to be. Everybody wants to pretend. I think maybe it's the internet. Maybe it's that Instagram, TikTok thought process that, hey, we should be perfect in the world we live in. But the world isn't perfect. Trying to pretend it's perfect comes off as arrogant almost, if not even somebody you wouldn't want to work with. Because, there are nights that we all thought as business owners, why the heck am I doing this? Why am I still, couldn't I just go make a bunch of money and clock out at 5:30, 8 p.m. and make my extra 8 minutes and make myself look good? That's not business ownership. That is further from the truth. And if that's the mentality, definitely stay as an employee, because it is not like that. Like Erick just said, he'd be on the phone 2:00 in the morning. I know you travel, in and out of the country as well. And I'm sure that adds a whole nother level of headache for you, but also another level of opportunity, like myself, right? Is leveraging, use outside the U.S. Now, I know there's a lot of, people look down on it. Some people do, some people don't. What's your thought process from an IT standpoint, though, with being able to bring in people into your company as virtual assistants, or we'll call it, remote workers, whether it be on Fiverr, Upwork, whatever you want to call it? What are some of the wins and losses behind that? And do you prescribe to that thought process?
We do, but we have a mentality of nothing that touches data. If it touches data from clients, it has to be a W-2 employee, right? So we're okay. Mm-hmm. For example, if I want to do cold calling, or if I want to do marketing, or if I got to do things like that, I feel 100% confident of doing it. But we've done the touching data, but it has to be through one of our vendors that offers this as a service. Right?
Okay.
So we have currently 2 employees that work after hours, mm-hmm. that are basically not subsidized, I would say subcontracted by US companies that are part of our vendors. So it gives us an extra layer of security related to the stuff that we deal with. But one of my assistants, she works in Venezuela, but we don't do direct hires. It has to be hired through a US based company.
Interesting. So and you prescribe that? Do you think that is, and obviously we know the larger companies like Microsoft, Google, Oracle, the larger corporations, Amazon do use, workers like that. Now, I'm sure they have a lot of processes in place, but from an IT standpoint, how much more work does it take? People think they're saving all this money by hiring overseas. Is there a gap in security that causes more concerns, or is it worth the money? What is your take on that thought process?
It's worth it if you just do it right. My employees have my computers. If I lose a computer, $1,000, I don't care, right? But I know that I'm able to secure my environment, even if it's remote employees. So in theory, the way you can see it, it's like I have a physical cable. It's digital, but all the way to Venezuela that I can handle. And I'm okay with that. I'm not okay if I can't control, right? If they're working from their machine and all of a sudden they disappear, at least I have the ability of control, because then if she doesn't show up or he doesn't show up, I can go to the company and say, hey, this employee didn't show up. What's the status? And now they have a a fiduciary responsibility to provide me an update and say, hey, this employee's gone. We're going to collect them the equipment. We're going to make sure it's done right. So it gives me that certainty of layer of control, to have some peace of mind that way.
Yeah. So you're not totally throwing caution to the wind. Now, are you seeing that increase from your clients in general? Is that something that they've seen more of, seen less of when it comes to hiring virtual? I mean, obviously, after post-COVID, the remote world has changed, right? Everyone wants to be remote. Everybody wants to work on a beach in a van that they live in that has a Starlink connected to the top, right? That's the world everyone wants to work in. What are some of the pitfalls, and like, have you seen that increase cause challenges in the workplace for the IT world?
I think it's running a profile. There's like a disk profiler or something, because some people don't have it. Like, I can have it certain days that I'm okay working from home. Sometimes I just need to work from a cafeteria because I can't be home working. I'm not productive. Sometimes I have to be at the office, right? So some people have it. Some people are very responsible. You wake up, shower, get dressed, go on the computer. But there's some people that don't. And that's a problem. It's not something you can teach them. It's not something that you can help them develop. It's they have it or they don't. That's my opinion. Some people are good. Some people are not. They need to go to an office. So
now, are there good tools to track so that you could offer to a company that is having remote employees to make sure that there is accountability? Because I think that's another thing is accountability from a remote employee standpoint. How do you I've heard of different programs out there that you can use to track, but what kind of solutions do you provide to?
So there's tools. There's Microsoft tools. There's third-party tools. Third-party tools are typically more affordable than the Microsoft tool. That gives you reporting. There's some work that the company will have to do. So basically say, okay, I don't know, if they go to, let's say, HubSpot.com, right? That's okay because that's a tool that we approve. If they go to Facebook.com, that's not a tool unless you're in marketing, right? So you can create a marketing department. You can create, if they have human resources, obviously you don't want to be paying somebody to go to Monster.com and find their next opportunity while you're paying them, right? But if they're in HR, then that's a tool allowed. So you have to spend some time saying, okay, this tools are good for this. These tools are generally good for all the business. And you can, based on reporting, it allows them to create timesheets. If you don't have a timesheet that you use, a lot of, depending on what company, like for example, my techs have to do timesheets because typically if a client doesn't have a full managed services or if it's projects we got to build for that time, but it also accounts to see what we're doing right, wrong, processes, reporting. But, my assistant doesn't have to put timesheets. No need. Right? I know I keep track of her time differently. So it all depends on the kind of company, the business they're in, how they operate. But yes, there's tools out there that facilitate that. There's also tools for security. If you think something's wrong, you can wipe the machine as soon as it becomes online. So there's different tools that you can implement.
Yeah. So ultimately, you are the IT Batman out there saving Palm Beach County, which is our Gotham City, from all the terrible princes who want to take your money and emails that want to scam your friends and your other business clients, is what I'm hearing here.
I like that analogy. That's a good one. I never thought of it like that, but it's a Gotham paradise. I'll call it.
It is definitely a Gotham paradise. Definitely. One question I always like asking everyone who comes on the podcast, it's always an interesting response. There's no right or wrong answer, but I always like asking the question, if you could ask one person, whether there be dead or alive, doesn't matter, one question, what would that one question be? And who would that one person be you'd want to ask that question to?
I would love to meet Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, really? That's a new one.
I would love to meet Sylvester Stallone. I don't know. I grew up with his movies, and it's like it's a movie. To have the ability to be able to watch a movie over and over and over and over again, and you still get something, and his story and his background and how he came from nothing.
Yeah, the Italian stallion. Yeah, no kidding.
So I would love what kind of question I will ask. It would probably something be about humbleness, around humbleness. How does he keep that humbleness, and what because. I went to Philadelphia once, and I did the whole Rocky tour by myself on a rental car. Don't go to Kensington where his first house is. It's a bad area. I didn't know at that time, and I was driving around. I'm like, why are there so much needles around? Bad town, but yeah. Sylvester Stallone. That's the guy who I would love to meet.
No, that's a great answer. Again, I mean, obviously he's an inspiration. The guy came from nothing. I mean, he literally bet it all on Rocky. If everyone doesn't know the story behind all that. So he literally took the leap of faith, really took the leap, living in his car, took the leap and funded essentially it himself.
And the
Interesting.
dog, he bought the dog back, and it's a cool story. And
it is a really
movie.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. And then how he kept going with the next couple of films and how he got the money to do that. So talk about somebody with grit and determination. Awesome. Well, Erick, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on today. The one thing I like to make sure, though, before you go, is how in the heck do people find Erick? What's the best way to find Simplify? How can they find you? How can they get hooked up with you?
You can follow me on Instagram, eSolms, ESOLMS, or Simplify. There's a T between the I and the F. It's like simplify things, but there's a T between the I and the F. Just connect with me, send me a message. I'm a message or a call away. My cell phone number, let's just give you the office number, 561-425-6100, and you can reach out to me that way.
Well, if you guys need somebody who can help with your IT services, Erick is definitely, him and his team are definitely here to help. They work great. They do a lot of great work. They do a lot of philanthropic work as well. So it's great to have somebody on who does care about the county and, is pushing for great things here.
Yeah, Rudy, if anybody comes from this, so basically I will more than glad be able to give them a free assessment to see where they stand and how we can help them. At the end of the day, we just want to help. My goal is to help secure as many businesses as possible from being victim of cybercrime. So we'll do what we can to help you.
Awesome. Erick, thank you so much, buddy. Have a great rest of your day.
Same. Thanks so much, Rudy. Appreciate your time.